Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the Senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, and very proud to represent the high-tech corridor. Today's Kibbitzing with Kagan episode features Troy LaMail-Stovall, the new CEO of TEDCO, the Technology Development Corporation. Troy, thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule to join me today.
Well, Senator Kagan, thank you. I'm honored that you had a chance to have me on. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to our chat. So first off, you have had an interesting career route and have done a lot in higher education. Why don't you give folks who are watching an idea of your background and how you navigated to TEDCO?
Well, thank you for that. Again, thank you again for having me. Just real quick, I think the best way to describe, I'm an engineer by training, electrical engineer by training, who got his degree in computer science. I've worked in telecommunications. I've worked in venture. I've run a venture fund. Still involved with a family and office that has venture. Have started a couple of companies, funded a number of companies, sat on some corporate boards, and as you mentioned, have been involved in higher ed. Part of that was just driven by a spirit that my mom gave me. To be able to give back. And then my journey to TEDCO kind of, in my mind, kind of brings all that together because of, as you know, what we do at TEDCO, it's a combination of working with our universities, it's working with these entrepreneurs, it's working with obviously the legislators, and then at the end of the day, really having a vision of what this entrepreneurial culture can and should be here in Maryland. So to me, it's really been a combination. It's a culmination of all the skills and the experiences that I've had in my career.
That's great. Well, let me just show you that I am branding with my tea mug here because I am a fan of TEDCOs, but not everyone knows what the group does. So why don't you give a brief overview and then we'll go into some details.
Yeah, very brief. I think the short version is TEDCO is a state-backed venture capital entity. We provide funding for early stage companies, technology-based early stage companies, and we do everything from grants out of the research enterprise to commercialize the lab, some of the great work that we do in our universities, to early stage companies providing their what's called pre-seed and Series A capital for those. But the last part of what we also do is we support them. So it's not just the money. We actually have these series of wraparound services to ensure those companies' success and frankly the success of the overall technology innovation ecosystem here in Maryland.
That's great. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I don't. Do you know how many other states have an entity like TEDCO?
I don't know exactly how many, but since TEDCO's 22 years old, and at the time it was state of the art, was one of the few, and now a number of states do have. I want to say many of them do have some version of TEDCO.
Right, great. So there have been some challenges at TEDCO, and as you know, the Speaker of the House and I had legislation to reform, revise, and add some transparency and accountability. Can you just speak as the new guy in charge, what your three priorities are at TEDCO? What sort of reforms are you looking to make?
Well, I think starting with those reforms, I think like any organization, it really starts with the people. And it starts with what I truly believe are our core values. And so if you look at TEDCO has these core values, and one of them is around stewardship. So it's around collaboration and respect and integrity and stewardship, as I just mentioned. And so really, we really are putting things in place, Senator, that allow us not just to talk about those core values, but to really live them. And in many ways, to measure ourselves that we're doing what we want to do against those. And so with that, we have created a group called the One TEDCO Collaborative. It's a cross-functional group at TEDCO. Many folks have never worked together before because of the nature of the way TEDCO is structured. And they're in the process of doing our 3-year strategy, which I'm hoping to actually we'll be sharing it with the legislative folks, so probably in the latter part of the spring. And it's got 3 elements to it, to your point. It's the first one is, how do we drive a higher level of operational excellence and investment in our talent? And if we believe we do that, we can then move to the second, we're calling pillar. The second pillar being, how do we have an ecosystem that's sustainable? How do we invest using the people and the operations to ensure the ecosystem is sustainable? And if we do that, then we can start telling our story. And if we tell our story properly, not just from the legislators, but other sources, we can get the resources we need that come back to make us more operationally effective, to invest in our talent so that we can build a better ecosystem for Maryland, which, so that's the do loop that we're trying to create. And so that's really what we're focused on right now, but doing all of that around our core values.
Super. Love that. Love the values. So as you and I have discussed offline, technology has not always been friendly and welcoming to women and people of color, including at TEDCO. Can you talk about any special efforts, awareness, or outreach that you have started or plan to start?
Absolutely. So as I just mentioned, I'm an engineer by training. And so I have been in this, and I've been involved with just a litany of efforts to get more people of color and women involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And just be blunt, the numbers have not gotten better in my, 30 to 40 years of these efforts. So it's actually in some ways disheartening at a very personal level for me. But again, back to why I came to TEDCO, because I did see the opportunity because technology is a wonderful enabler that really has a way to cross culture and cross racial and gender divides, but it hasn't been used in that way. And I think COVID has shown those divides, obviously. And so, yes, we have, as you know, we have very specific funds around the Builder Fund that we've in some of your colleagues have introduced some legislation to try to beef up Builder Fund and provide those resources, and the House is thinking about some similar conversations. But it's not just about that, right? It's also about being more intentional about going after these efforts. And so we're gonna, we have this thing called the Rural Business Initiative. We're gonna be soon announcing an Urban Business Initiative, just like we put people across the state to help stimulate and support our rural opportunities, which are absolutely important. We need to do the same thing for the Baltimores, for the Prince Georges, even for the Montgomery counties. Montgomery County still has opportunities that need to be unleashed and taken into account. So we're going to be launching that here soon. How do we think about that? And then lastly, how do we be intentional, Senator, about, we focus on the founders a lot, but and their diversity, and that's an important. But what about employees 2, 3, those early hires in these companies? Diversifying that pool also needs to be a part of and we have to, again, be more intentional about diversifying. So we've got programs we're looking at, working with like the Bowie States and the Frostburgs and the Salisburys to make sure that the guy from Hopkins or the young lady from Hopkins meets the engineer from Bowie State. That's what we've got to be more intentional about.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I've got to put in a word for universities at Shady Grove, because you
absolutely, I love those guys.
Such an important part of our infrastructure there. Mentoring is a key aspect of technology as a way of diversifying those who are engaged. You also have board members who are so expert and accomplished. Can you speak about how TEDCO is thinking about mentoring and connecting folks?
Absolutely.
Or informally.
So I keep talking about this ecosystem. And the kind of the joke, but it's a teaching moment that I'd like to say is if I asked 10 people the definition of an ecosystem, I would get 20 different definitions. You just would. So let me add my 21st, right? So a well-functioning ecosystem, Senator, is when it's smaller to be bigger. In other words, if we create degrees of separation between any two people or any two and make those smaller, then we become bigger, we become stronger. And so to your point is, part of what we want to be at TEDCO is being this enabler, this what I call this great knitter. Maryland has all the right assets. We could go on about all the various assets that we have in Maryland. We have the right sets of assets compared to any other state. They haven't been knitted together in a way that makes those degrees of separation closer and tighter so that they function in a different way. It starts with our incubators, making them tighter. It starts with our universities, making them tighter. It starts with just organizations and making them tighter. And exposing, like we just talked about, two people who wouldn't, I call it orbits. How do you make two orbits collide that wouldn't have collided but for the intentionality of TEDCO? That's what we've got to do more of. And that's how you create those mentoring opportunities. That's how you create those opportunities to leverage individuals who but for would not have collided with one another. Absolutely.
So Troy, when you talk about the ecosystem in Maryland, and again, I'm very proud to represent Gaithersburg and Rockville, including all sorts of companies like Novavax and AstraZeneca, who are on the cutting edge of the vaccine reach.
Mhm.
Can you talk about, does TEDCO have a role in supporting in the life trajectory of that effort? Is there a role, or is it really that you're more focused on sort of younger companies, less established?
Definitely the younger companies, but the younger companies, many cases, are the seeds for those bigger companies. Remember the real simple level for TEDCO. We put $1 in for them to eventually raise a 10 or 100 or 1,000, a billion, right? And so part of what creates a great ecosystem is not just having the really big companies, but having the smaller ones too, because they become feeders into those bigger ones, or even frankly, just be blunt, acquisition targets for those. But what I'll close, Senator, is they create a talent pool. And that's the real point of a real strong cluster, right? Because you want to have what I call the Friday Monday phenomenon, where the guy or the gal can leave a job on Friday and have a job on Monday because their talent is in demand because of the extent of the companies that are in that geographic area. That's the real power of what having that range of companies does for you.
Yep. Very proud of all that's happening in Maryland. So when you meet a dynamo, a new tech startup person, whether it was at TEDCO or as a venture fund person, what's the biggest advice that you give someone who's just starting up, has a great idea, but is sort of figuring it out in
Yeah.
the stages?
Outstanding question. When I first started doing venture eons ago, we were involved in a number of the funds in Silicon Valley. So I got to meet these people who are like legendary individuals who are like legends in this space. And they all told me the exact same thing, every single one. They said, Troy, we always invest in A quality people, A quality teams that have B quality plans, and never the reverse. Never the reverse, never A quality plans with B quality people. Because at the end of the day, to answer your question, I'm investing in somebody and their ability to take our money or my money and do something really cool with it. But more, not just my money, but my advice. And if I get somebody that's not willing to listen, not willing to understand, not willing to be part of it, then they don't want our money.
So I was just watching an episode of Shark Tank, and one of the sharks decided to invest in someone. And it wasn't just because of the idea that she was pitching, but it was you. I'm investing in you because you're amazing. And whatever you do in the future, I want to be a part of.
That's exactly correct.
So how is TEDCO like or unlike Shark Tank, since a lot of people watch that? Because there's a similarity, right? They're coming and pitching and they want your money.
At the end of the day, yes. At the end of the day, we have prelude pitch. Actually, we have one tomorrow. So we have prelude pitches that happen throughout the course of the year, and the course of the month, actually, and individuals come in. But I think the one difference is I tend to call this a kind of a nicer version of Shark Tank, because when people come to us, we also give them guidance as to, if we're not the funding mechanism, where they should go. Or if we're not the right match, what they should do. And so we try to find not maybe a yes from us, but a what their options are versus just a no. And so I think that's where we would definitely be different from a Shark Tank. But we not investing money. I've seen it too. Not just investing our money, we're investing our time with these companies as well.
So speaking of time, tech startup entrepreneurs and even those established are such remarkable thinkers and are passionate about making a difference. You've been engaged in the community and are such a role model in that way. How have you started thinking about engaging tech people in the broader community, diversifying their time and impact through volunteering, service on a nonprofit board, and all that? Is that something that you all have started talking about yet, to emulate some of the leadership that you've demonstrated?
Well, yeah, I appreciate the comment. I think some of that, Senator, is by doing. And so part of this is I have to keep doing what I do and how I do it. So I don't know if we don't have a specific effort around that, to answer your question, but I think it is something that I have to show that it's an important part of what we need to be doing.
Well, consider this being lobbied then, because those folks could bring such a a wealth, and I don't mean it as a pun, financial, but just strategic planning, thinking, community engagement, outreach. Yeah, whether it's about affordable housing, food insecurity, healthcare, anything else. So
Agreed.
you and I are working together on legislation along with Delegate Jessica Feldmark. It looks like the TEDCO legislation is going to move forward. I'm hopeful to expand your board, bring a little more different kind of expertise and diversity, as well as making sure that you are in law, not called director, but called CEO, as is appropriate. So hopefully we'll move forward on that. Before we go to Fast Five, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to mention here briefly?
No, other than, hey, appreciate all your support. I really mean that. Since the first day I've been here, I think you were one of the first folks I spoke to, and you have been nothing but supportive of me and TEDCO in general. And so I can't thank you enough for that.
Absolutely. All right. So Troy LaMail Stovall, the Fast Five, 5 quick questions.
All right.
The first one, you are a triathlete. Which aspect do you like the best? Biking, swimming, or running?
Running.
Okay. Number 2, what is one event in your life that you think would make an interesting movie?
Oh, wow. This whole name, my hyphenated name.
Cool. Do you want to give us a sentence or two on its history?
I grew up Troy Stovall, thought Richard Stovall was my dad, my biological dad. Found out when I was 18 that Robert LaMelle Williams was my dad. Robert grew up Robert Williams, and at 18, he found out that Sidney LaMelle was his dad. Robert ran track like I did, pledged the same fraternity as I did, and I could go on.
Cool. Okay. So you had it legally changed.
I did have it legally changed, yes.
That's great. That's great. Nice way to honor your dads. Dads.
Dads, yep.
So I got to give a shout out to my interns and staff because they helped me come up with these. Question number 3. As a kid, what was your earliest career dream that you can remember?
Being an astronomer.
Astronomer. Nice. Okay.
An astronomer.
Number 4, what is one food you absolutely won't eat?
I won't eat sushi.
Oh, okay. Sushi lunch date then when we're able to get together in person. Okay. And the question that I ask everyone, Troy, what is your one secret superpower? What is a talent, some skill that you're really good at that most folks can't?
I'm gonna go with coaching.
Say more.
I believe that I'm a branch in several people's tree. And so what's important is for me to use that to grow into others. And so growing into others is an important part. And I can speak to folks who have, people that have worked with me are now, managers and got C-level titles because of the work that they've done with me. So that's important for me.
Fantastic. Well, Troy LaMail Stovall, welcome to TEDCO. Welcome to back to the tech community and running such an important organization for the state of Maryland and for the whole region and the nation, assuming that we continue to roll out big successes here in Maryland.
We will.
All you do, I look forward to continuing to work with you. And thanks for taking the time to kibitz today.
Again, thank you. Appreciate you.